Welcome to the Explainer. We've absolutely all been there. You finally crack a tough login screen, you celebrate, maybe grab a coffee, and assume your automation workflow is totally good to go. But getting past that front door, well, that's really just the very beginning of a reliable pipeline. Because here's the harsh reality. A successful login does not mean your automation session is actually reliable. It's wild how many post-login workflows just unexpectedly break down. The system logs in, cookies are set, your worker starts crunching through pages, and everything looks totally fine. You think you're in the clear, right? But in reality, your session is walking on incredibly thin ice.
So how do we fix this? Today, we're going to break down the post-login illusion, figure out exactly why these challenges appear out of nowhere, run through a practical resilience checklist, look at how to prevent triggers, and finally, figure out how to measure real success.
Part 1. The post-login illusion. When scraping goes wrong.
Picture this. You log in, cookies are perfectly set, everything is humming along. And then, boom! At page 50, everything just halts. Zero warning. Your system thought it had a VIP free pass because it authenticated early on, but the target website? Yeah, it had other plans. Suddenly, a CAPTCHA appears right in the middle of your session, and your workflow is totally bricked. Your parser gets fed an HTML challenge instead of the data you actually wanted, leaving you with empty outputs, missing records, and a very confused team asking, wait, why did the workflow break?
And that's when the frantic guessing begins. Was it a login issue? Did we hit a request rate limit? Is the session too old? Did our proxy IP suddenly get flagged? Or, wait, is our browser fingerprint inconsistent? It's a total diagnostic nightmare trying to figure out exactly what specific action triggered the block.
To fix this, we absolutely have to shift our mindset. We need to move away from the old login focus, which simply asks, hey, can the system log in? And move toward a much more mature resilience focus. This means asking the harder question. Can the system stay reliable when verification appears later on?
Part 2. Why challenges appear. Verification isn't just at the front door.
You see, CAPTCHAs don't just sit at the login screen anymore. They trigger after a session has already started, usually when you least expect it. Modern anti-bot systems are constantly evaluating your activity. It's all driven by behavior, not just your initial visit. They dynamically gate suspicious actions. So if your request rate is way too fast, or your navigation doesn't have those natural human-like pauses, a challenge is going to pop up. It could be triggered by an expiring cookie, a proxy IP losing its reputation, you submitting too many forms in a row, or even a missing JavaScript fingerprint.
Part 3. The Resilience Checklist, a practical framework for survival.
To survive these behavioral triggers, you have to assume that disruption is just a normal part of the process. You need to inspect responses throughout the entire session. So step 1, treat login as the start, not the finish line. It doesn't guarantee a free ride. Step 2, actively detect challenge pages before you process the content. And step 3, preserve that exact same session after you solve the challenge.
Let's zoom in on step 2 for a second. Before your business logic even runs, you absolutely must detect these indicators. You do not want a CAPTCHA page sneaking into your parser disguised as normal data. So you need to check every single response for things like CAPTCHA HTML markup, turnstile indicators, Cloudflare challenge pages, 403 or 503 HTTP error codes, specific JSON errors, or even unexpected verification fragments that get buried inside AJAX API calls. Which brings us to the golden rule of this whole explainer. Do not create a new session unless re-authentication is actually intended. If a challenge pops up mid-session, you have to solve it and submit it using that exact same session context. If you spin up a new session to solve it, you're going to lose all your authentication cookies and headers. Meaning, sure, you solved the CAPTCHA, but your workflow still fails because you basically just logged yourself out.
This leads to a super common question. Should I just solve the login CAPTCHA again? No way! You solve the new mid-session challenge, but keep your existing context totally intact. That initial login step already passed. This new CAPTCHA is a completely separate verification event triggered by something you just did.
Part 4. Preventing triggers, slowing down to scale up.
Look, scaling a workflow that's already triggering constant verification is just going to skyrocket your failure rates and your costs. You have to stop unnatural bursts of requests. How? By slowing down. Add randomized 2 to 5 second delays so you have natural, human-like pauses. Rotate your user agent periodically. Keep those cookies persistent. Use residential proxies to keep a solid IP reputation, and really try to mimic how a real person navigates the site.
You also have to realize that a retry after a random network error is a completely different beast than retrying after a mid-session CAPTCHA. You need what we call phase-aware retries. If you keep getting blocked because of your behavior, do not just aggressively hammer the server with retries forever. You need to add hard stop conditions, implement back-off delays, track exactly why you're retrying, and only keep going if you are totally sure the session is still trustworthy.
Part 5. Measuring success. Moving beyond login metrics.
You literally cannot manage what you don't accurately measure. A simple metric telling you, hey, login was successful, is nowhere near enough. You need to track preservation and end-to-end costs. You should be monitoring your mid-session capture rate, pinpointing the exact moment the challenge appears, checking what your request pacing was right before you got hit, and tracking your challenge detection accuracy. And honestly, the most crucial metric, the cost per completed workflow. Not just the cost per capture solve, but the whole shebang.
Because at the end of the day, a solve that doesn't restore the active session is absolutely not an operational success. If you beat the puzzle but lose your cookies, your automation is still broken. This is why ownership of this issue can't just float somewhere between engineering, operations, and QA. A solved CAPTCHA is totally useless if your authenticated state vanishes right along with it. Oh, and quick side note, it goes without saying, but automation like this should only ever be run in owned, client-authorized, or contractually permitted environments.
So I'm going to leave you with this final thought to take back to your engineering teams. A login success metric is not enough. Is your workflow actually preserving active sessions? Are you actually resilient, or are you just getting past the front door and hoping for the best? Take a really hard look at your post-login automation today and ask yourself that question.